Welcome to the Ride This Out podcast, where we talk about how to improve your mental health and strengthen your connection to nature and your community, all through one simple solution: the bicycle. My name is Zach Golding, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and mental health therapist. I'll be your host as we discuss the power of pedaling. All right, in this week's session, I talk with Bruce Bussell of Lubbock, Texas. Bruce runs the Old Guy Bicycle blog. I came across his Instagram account and have been reading his blog ever since. He's got some awesome wisdom, some great things to share. And I'm sure glad I asked him to be on the podcast because he just has some amazing stories. I feel like, I'm talking with, one of my old grandpas or one of my old uncles and just sharing some awesome insights, some stories. He's got stories for days. So, go out on your porch, grab some lemonade, kick back, relax, and enjoy these stories with Bruce. All right. Thanks again, Bruce, for being willing to jump on the podcast and talk about a few things with me today. Just wanted to ask you to introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, kind of what you do, all those good things.
I'm Bruce Bussell. I live in Lubbock, Texas. I'm 67 years old. Been riding a bicycle, forever. Of course, when I was a kid, I rode a bike, and it didn't seem like it's just a few years I was back on a bike riding. And I think cycling is one of those things that if I don't cycle, I don't feel right.
Yeah. So did you grow up in Lubbock, Texas?
I actually was born in Wichita Falls, Texas, which is about 250 miles from here, and I grew up in Hobbs, New Mexico. My dad worked in the oil industry, and so we followed the oil. And Hobbs, New Mexico and still is. It's a hotbed, so that's where we ended up. Nice. That's only about 100 miles from Lubbock. It's on the border of New Mexico and Texas, West Texas.
Okay. And you just grew up cycling. Did anyone particular get you into it, or was it your family thing, or did you just get a bike and start riding one day?
Well, when I was a kid, it's back then in the 60s, you didn't think anything of getting on your bike and just riding all over town. The parents didn't worry about you. And, once I went to college and I was in high school, you kind of put the bike away. But when I got into college, I lived off campus, and I went to J.C. Penney's of all places and bought a bicycle so I could ride my bike to class. And, it's maybe 4 miles onto campus. So I'd ride it every day and ride back. And every once in a while I'd go out and ride through the pecan orchards outside of town just because it was cool. It was like a tunnel of trees out there that you could ride on the highway, and just kind of really liked it. But then in college, I started running. It was a big craze back in the 60s. The running marathon became a big deal, and I started running. And that's when the Nike came out with their shoes, the Nike Waffle, and I Nike Waffle and all the Nike shoes for a few years, and I started having knee problems, and it turns out those shoes destroyed my knee, and I had a couple of surgeries, and I just destroyed it. And a doctor one day told me, he says, "You're gonna have to stop running." So I went back to a bicycle, and I've been on it ever since.
Wow.
That's kind of the story about the bicycle.
Yeah. Well, and I see on your Instagram, you'd mentioned that you've biked, some pretty long distances, right? What are some of the rides that you've done?
Oh, I guess the longest one I've done was from Lubbock to Pensacola, Florida. That was in 2016. I had turned 60, and I thought, hey, this would be kind of cool to do something like this at 60, because I don't think a lot of 60-year-olds, do something like that. Now,
Yeah, I don't think so either.
yeah, I was a teacher, and my wife is still a teacher. So, and I have a disabled son. I have a son with Down syndrome and autism, and so, he's not the type of person you can leave. So I can't ride well, back then I was teaching, and now that I'm retired, I can't go for these long rides like in March when the weather's nice. So I had to do it in July, and you know, I've ridden from Lubbock across New Mexico up to Albuquerque from Lubbock. I've ridden in 2020 during the pandemic. I rode from Texoma, Oklahoma down to South Padre Island, which is the longest stretch across Texas that you can have. It's 962 miles. I did that in July. I rode in a lot of 110, 112-degree days. That was kind of miserable, but it was a fun trip. So I've, done a lot of that. I've always wanted to ride cross country, like border to border, not so much east to west or west to east. I've always had a dream of riding from Canada to Mexico.
Oh yeah.
And when I turn 70 in 2026, I'll be 70. I think that's going to be my next big ride.
Man, I love that. That's to have that goal and that mindset even as you progressively age and get into your older years. That's awesome. I'm just curious, what's the motivation for all this? Is just you love biking that much? You just want to ride, that far, those distances, or what's motivating you?
When I was younger, I would ride in like I'm sure you've heard of the Hotter Than Hell, Hotter Than Hell in Wichita Falls, which is like the biggest. There's like 10, 15,000 cyclists in that, and it's always in August. And believe me, when they say hotter than hell, because it is. I mean, it really is. I've ridden in some really hot ones, and I've done, stuff like that. But as I got older, I think, realized I couldn't go as fast, and I never was a real competitive. I could never ride first, second place. I always rode against myself, competed with myself. But as I got older, I thought, I think it'd be kind of cool just to take off, and ride. And so, my first ride was at the time I lived in Carlsbad, New Mexico, which is my house to Hobbs was about 80 miles. So I did that a couple of times. I thought, that's cool. I think I'd like to do one where I spend the night. So I went from Carlsbad to Lubbock, and it took 2 days. And then it just kind of, grew from there. Now, in 2020, one of the things when I run a nonprofit. It's a volunteer thing. I don't make any money off of it. I do it voluntarily. It's a food truck that we only hire kids with developmental disabilities. And in 2020, when the pandemic hit, we were about to go out of business. And I didn't have anything else to do. And that's why I rode across Texas to raise money to save, it's called Nick's Treats, to save the nonprofit. And we raised $20,000 on that ride.
Wow.
And saved Nick's Treats. And we're still alive today. And I think in 2026, I might do another fundraiser. So yeah, I have different reasons, but mainly it's just I thought it'd be kind of cool. And it really is. It really is kind of cool to get out there. And I go by, people say, well, who rides with you? I just ride by myself. I have a bob trailer that I, put on the back of my bike, and I take off.
Love it. And you just have you have like a little tent or sleeping bag, or you just pack all your stuff in there? I've never done this bike packing thing. So I'm curious how that all works.
Well, that bob trailer, I think I ended up about 50 pounds on it. And, I have a tent, and I have a sleeping bag and my clothes and stuff like that, and just haul it behind me. Some days some nights I'll sleep in the tent, and some nights I go sleep in a hotel. Now the trip across Texas, I didn't take a tent. I just, hotels were so cheap during the pandemic. There's nobody in them, so I stayed in hotels every night along that way. I mean, they were dirt cheap. I was staying in brand new hotels, $40, $50, because they had nobody there.
Right.
I had usually you ask for a room. Can I stay on the first floor? I like staying on the first floor because my bike, and they said, well, you can have the whole floor.
Man,
So
what an adventure. That's so fun. That's so cool.
yeah, it was. Now during the pandemic, I couldn't go into restaurants, so I'd have to go like to a McDonald's when I'd get ready to eat. And normally you go in there to cool off because it's 100 degrees outside. It's hot, but back then they weren't letting people in, so that made it that was one of the more difficult things, was eating out in the shade in 100 degrees. But other than that, it was memorable. I enjoyed it. The ride across the bridge at see, you're not allowed, bikes aren't allowed on the bridge at South Padre, and somebody found out what I was doing, called the police, and so the police met me and escorted me across that bridge
Oh wow.
out to South Padre Island. That was really cool. I had a local policeman and a state policeman that escorted me across that bridge. So
I
that
love it.
that kind of made it a good ending.
Yeah, no kidding. So, I mean, you've done all these long bike packing trips and stuff. Um, and those are amazing. Do you just ride daily, or how do you stay up with your fitness, or what are some ways that you do that?
Oh, you mean training?
Yeah.
So I just, I try to ride 5 days a week. Um, right now, my riding is okay. When I get ready to ride something like that, I'll jack my riding up to 25, 30 miles a day. Right now, I'm 15, 20 miles a day, and then as I get closer to those things, I'll try to do some 50, 60 mile rides, or I might even ride from Amarillo is 120 miles from Lubbock. And as I'm getting ready for these longer rides, I might just, pack my trailer and ride to Amarillo, spend the night, ride back. That's a couple of 100-mile rides back to back. And if I can do that, then I'm ready.
Yeah.
I mean, you're
Yeah.
not racing, you've got from sun up to sundown to get there. And if I don't, when I first started, I still had that competitive nature with myself in there of how fast can I get there? And then I realized, maybe I should stop and smell the roses here, and take my time and enjoy it. And I think it was a trip across New Mexico when I realized that, because I went from Love to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and then back up to Cloudcroft, which sits at 9,000 feet. Lubbock's at 3,000 feet. So I had to climb mountains through Ruidoso, which is about 8,000 feet, and then back down to Las Cruces with feet. And then the next day turned around and went to Cloudcroft, which was a massive amount of climbing. And that's something. I live in Lubbock, Texas, which is as flat as a pancake. And to tell you what Lubbock is the town next to us is called Level Land, and that's the best description of what this land is like. And then you go on these rides and you end up in the mountains. It's quite interesting.
Oh yeah, with the elevation and the
Oh
air
yeah,
change, that's tough.
but you have all day, so you just suck it up and go.
Yeah, I guess I've never really thought of it that way. If you're taking your time anyways, and it's just an adventure, you're not racing there to get there by a certain time. You're just out
You
to
just
enjoy the
go.
ride.
And I like to, when you do a bike ride across the country by a solo ride, convenience stores become your lifeline.
Mm.
That's where you fill your water bottles and get your Gatorade and just rest. Go in but that's where you meet the people. That's where you meet people. Because it never fails at every store. One or two or three people will approach you and, what are you doing? And their question always, the first question is, what are you doing? And then, well, where are you from and where are you going? And then the third thing, and I would say 90% of the people I've talked to will say, are you crazy? And sometimes I think maybe I am, because you never have perfect rides. Some days just fall apart. There are days when you wonder what you're doing out there. And then there's days that it just all falls perfectly in place, so those days when they fall apart, and I always have one or two of those on every ride. And it can be that's your challenge. If you can get through that, you can get through anything. I had a ride on that ride to Florida. The third day I was in Bowie, Texas. And that night I was staying in a tent underneath, like a metal roof where there's picnic tables.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that there was going to be a storm hit, and it hit. And I found out the next day there was 5,000 lightning strikes around the area, and the rain was coming horizontally at me.
Oh my goodness.
And I got really scared. I mean, I was scared for my life at that point because of the lightning. I mean, it was like strike and boom at the same time. And
wow.
I called the police and, 911, and they came and rescued me. And they took me back to the jail, and I spent the night in the lobby. And so, yeah, I'm serious. And the next day I went out, and all my stuff was just thrown all over the place from the storm. And it was bad. And I sat there for a couple of hours and let it dry out as much as I could, and, put my tent and everything back in. And that was the worst day of the trip. I thought, well, my next ride was, I think, 70 miles away. And it's just, you want to talk about wondering if you're going to get through it. I didn't sleep all night after that storm. And then you get up and go on a bike, but then the day after that was the best day of the
Yeah.
whole thing. So
Yeah, can't get much worse than that. That's pretty wild.
yeah.
Oh
So,
man, I love it. I love the stories. That's great. And I think, yeah, like I was saying, so inspirational. I think just to hear, someone like you going, through things. It's like, well, why can't I, as a younger guy or someone else, go out there and have some of these adventures too? And yeah, just the life lessons that come from it too. I'm sure they're
oh
immense.
yeah, yeah.
And that's go ahead.
I ride my wife. When we met, I think she was kind of put out with how much I spend time on my bicycle. And I don't spend a huge amount of time. Like tonight, well, actually, this afternoon, I have something to do tonight. So probably about noon, I'll put my stuff on, go ride for a couple of hours, and just ride. It's nothing I don't do. I just ride.
Yeah.
But I think, when we got married and everything, I think she kind of got put out a little bit with the fact that, I was training for some of these rides, and maybe I'd be gone for 4 hours or
Yeah.
5, occasionally, but the 2 hours. But then I just kind of stopped riding for a while. I was having problems with the knee. I have a rebuilt knee now. And, so, but as I would quit riding, or if I don't ride very often, she would come to me and say, I think you need to get on your bike. And I think she sees the importance of a bicycle in my life, that if I don't ride, I don't feel right.
Yeah.
It's just, it affects you. when you ride and you're so used to riding a bike and you don't ride a bike. Now, I'm not talking 1 day or 2 days, but let's say I go 5 days and I'm not on the bike. She knows it,
Hmm.
you know. And I asked her one day, I says, "What do you mean?" And she says, "Well, you just don't seem like yourself when you're grumpier and stuff like that, or just not myself." So I've always said cycling is in my DNA. If I don't have it, it would just drive me crazy.
Yeah. No, and for her to be able to see that too, right? That change, I think that's pretty telling. A lot of times people around us can be the best indicators of where we're
Oh
at
yeah,
because they can recognize it. Yeah.
yeah.
So with
So
I mean all these lessons that you've learned, and that's how I came across your Instagram and stuff. I love the blog that you do. What's it called? The Old Man Bicycle blog, or what, how do you call it?
yeah, the old guy bicycle blog.
Old Guy Bicycle blog. I love that. And you have just some great articles on there of just, talking about all the different benefits and different ideas and different things, just sharing some of that wisdom and that knowledge that you've gained over all the years cycling. So, um, tell me a little
I
bit more about.
actually I actually run that blog. I started that blog because I love cycling. I thought, I can talk about cycling, but the one of the reasons for that blog is that the any advertising that's generated on that blog is donated to that nonprofit. And so I have my two of the most important things that I have is cycling and running this. I taught special ed for 38 years. So these kids that work for this are ex-students of mine. So these two things are so important to me. I thought I'll just blend them together. And that's, it takes a long time for a blog to get traffic and generate advertising, but it's slowly getting there. And so I thought I'll just marry these two things together.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. You taught
Yeah.
you taught special ed for 38 years, Bruce.
Yeah. I was a special ed teacher. When I first started out, I was a coach, basketball coach and everything. But eventually I just kind of focused in on special education and working with kids with disabilities. And I was already 18 years into my career when Nicholas was born. Nick, my son, like I say, he was born with Down syndrome and
Wow.
he's on the autism spectrum. He's 26 years old now. So
Wow.
I think he made me a better teacher.
Oh
I
yeah.
could kind of empathize with parents more as a teacher and a parent of a
Oh
kid
yeah.
with disabilities. So
No, for sure. That's incredible. And yeah, to teach that long, special ed, that's amazing. And then yeah, to have a kid of your own with um, you know, helping them through that too. That's
yeah, he's a neat
admirable,
kid.
Bruce. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
admirable. Everything you've done. That's awesome.
appreciate it.
So yeah, I mean this that's what I was going to ask about is, this is it a food truck? Is it a dessert truck? What is it again?
It's a dessert truck, but most people call it a food truck because it's a truck. What it is, it's an old UPS type truck. It looks like the big brown square UPS trucks that drive around.
Yeah.
It's one of those. It wasn't a UPS truck; it was a tool truck, and I bought it and had it, you know, converted to a food truck. And basically, we sell shaved ice. We started out in a trailer. Called it Nick's Shaved Ice Paradise. It's a little bitty trailer, and that's all we did was shaved ice. And I just felt like we needed to do more. So we bought this truck with the money from that bike ride across Texas and converted it. And now we sell shaved ice and ice cream and floats and shakes and stuff like that.
That's
And these
great.
kids have come a million miles over these last 6 years that we've been open.
Oh yeah,
We
just
just ended. Last Friday was our last day of the season. It's a seasonal business
mm,
because, shaved ice doesn't do real once you get to October, even though it's going to be 80 degrees today here, 85. Um, Once you get October, people just, they have other things on their mind.
right.
And so we're open from mid-April to mid-October, and Friday last week was our last day of the season, and I'm in the process of winterizing the truck and get it back out in April. Go again.
Love it. And that's yeah, such a cool thing to teach, you know, teach those skills and give them that experience. And like you said, it just kind of helps them through all that stuff, right?
Right. We have one girl that she didn't. I don't think her parents and her either thought she could maybe be a great worker. I mean, she is a good worker. She's a great worker. But with the confidence of the first 3 years of working for us, she had the confidence to go look for a year-round job, and she got hired at Marshall's, which is a clothing store. I mean, there's
Nice.
Marshalls everywhere. You know what a Marshalls is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And and she works there now and works for us on the weekends. So
I love it. That's great.
yeah, so I'm real proud. That's one of those ones that you go, look, we did that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. That's so great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Bruce, I appreciate again you taking some time. Any I was wanting to ask you, any advice that you'd give to, anyone, I would say like over 50 or over 60, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
they're thinking about getting into biking or, getting back into it. What advice would you give to people? I mean, besides reading your blog, because you have amazing stuff on there and you give great advice on there, but anything in particular?
You know, I think if you're interested in it, I think the best advice is do it. Just do it. Now, most people that want to ride, they don't even have a bicycle. So if they're interested in cycling, I tell people if you're really interested in this and you really want to cycle, go find a bike shop. Don't go to Walmart and get a Walmart bike. Uh, I really think that's the difference, and because people will get a Walmart bike, probably not going to stick with it. That bike is not going to hold up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell people if you're interested, find other people, go to a bike club, start reading about it. Like I said, like you said, my blog, other blogs, just start looking into it. But go do it. Just get out and do it, and just ride, ride around the block.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember when I first started. For me to ride 2 miles was amazing. You know, 2 miles on a bike is not much. But at first it is.
Yeah.
And just go ride around the neighborhood. But pretty soon you're going to be riding across town, and I'll never forget the first time I decided to go on a 25-mile ride. I had my dad follow me because I was worried, what happens if I break down? And, now I ride to Florida by myself. So that's how, so it's, you just take that first step. And if you don't want to invest in a bike at a bike shop, just go borrow somebody's bike, or just if you have to go to Walmart. But understand, if you're really interested in cycling and you want to get into it, find a bike shop, because those are the people that understand cycling, and they'll get you in the right bike. And you know just take that initial step. Just do it.
Yeah. I love that, and that's a lot of times when I talk to people, they'll maybe say, "Well, I don't wanna spend, that much on a bike," and even if it's, you can go to a bike shop and get a pretty good bike for, a few $100, it's not too
Yeah.
bad, but I'll just say it's an investment for your life, right? Like, it's something that it will completely change your lifestyle, it completely change the way you view things and the way that you, yeah, you just go throughout your day-to-day life, and so just that initial sometimes that initial, sticker shock of, I don't want to pay that much for a bike. I'll just go, yeah, I'll buy a cheaper one. But I'm with you 100%. I think having that quality, something that's going to last, it's kind of a symbol that, hey, this is a hobby, this is a lifestyle change that I want to do for an
That's
extended
right.
amount of time, my whole life. So,
You know, the other thing that people don't understand is, okay, let's say you spent $500 or $600 on a bicycle. Well, either do that or spend $50,000 on medical procedures.
yep.
That bicycle is going to save you. Yeah, I had a doctor once that I had a period of time where I didn't ride, I didn't run. Everybody goes through those dark periods when I was younger. And I remember, and I'm talking like in my 30s. And I remember a doctor one day sitting me down. He said, "Son, if you don't change your lifestyle," he said, my blood pressure was ridiculous, my weight was ridiculous, and all the things going on and background in my family. He said, "Son," he said, "you're going to be lucky to live to be 45."
Mm,
And that was a wake up call. And I had been a runner and I'd been a cyclist, so it wasn't hard for me to realize what I wanted to do. So I got the bicycle out and took off from there. So a $500 or $1,000 that's an investment, is going to save you thousands of dollars in medical procedures that I guarantee you'll have if you
yeah.
don't do something.
No, that's a good return of investment, as you kind of put it that way. Absolutely. And just like you were saying, it just makes you happier. It just makes your day-to-day life that much better. So
Oh yeah,
it's a
yeah,
win all the way around. Well,
it
thanks
really is.
again, Bruce. You're awesome. This has been an inspirational conversation for me. Absolutely. This is goals for me, man. When I get to that age, I want to be biking across the country too. That's amazing. So I love it.
Yeah, well, get ready for people to ask you that question. Are you crazy?
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. I get that question still. I ride my bike a lot to work, and it's about 11 miles one way, and
Yeah,
11 miles back. And yeah, people are like, "It's raining. Why are you riding?" I'm like, "Oh, it's. I still love to do it. That's why I'm
yeah.
doing it."
Are you kidding? Raining is the best time to ride the bike.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You get a free shower while you're going. Yeah.
When I was younger, I commuted to work. My wife was a stay-at-home mom, and so I could commute. Then, as she went back to work, and it was kind of my responsibility to get Nick to school and everything, so I had to stop. But I loved commuting. Absolutely loved it. We lived outside of town, so it was about an 8.5 mile ride to work. And at the time I was coaching, so I had a shower and stuff there. It was
Yeah.
ideal because in the gym, the locker room. So I yeah, commuting to work.
Yeah.
And
It's
talk about getting your head on straight before going to work
yeah.
and dealing with some of the things that a special ed teacher deals with, or teacher in general deals with. you know Being able to ride before you step into that environment and being able to ride after being in that environment really fixes you.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. I'm with you 100% on that. Like you said, it keeps your head in the right place, and just you're able to prepare and come home in a good mindset. So no, absolutely. So yeah, I love it. The benefits of riding the bike are just immense, and so you're a living and talking testament of that. So again, thank you for sharing your story with us, Bruce. If someone wants to follow your blog, your Instagram, or help fundraise or anything, how can they find you?
Well, Instagram is the old guy bicycle blog. you know Same thing. I have that blog. It's at www.theoldguybicycleblog.com. And then if you want to read about our little nonprofit, it's called Nick's Treats, and it's on Facebook, Instagram, and its own website at nickstreats.com.
Love it.
So,
I love it.
and
You're doing amazing things, Bruce. I wish you the best luck with all that you do, and yeah, as you train for that next ride, I'm excited to kind of follow along and see how it goes.
yeah, I have, like I say, it'll probably be next year before I get real serious because that's not something you can train for in a matter of months. You got to have some stuff, some time under your belt. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I'm training now, but to really train, I mean, where you start jacking up those 30 and 40-mile days, yeah, on the weekends and stuff. So I'm
Love it.
sure I'll cover it in the blog because I think it's good for people to see that a 70-year-old can do something like that.
No, yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. That it's truly inspirational. So I appreciate the time, Bruce. Thank you so much again, and I'll stay in touch with you as things progress.
All right. I appreciate you, you know, letting me do this. It was fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was. I think. Well, I don't think I know a lot of people get some good things out of this. I know I got a lot out of it. So that's a big reason why I'm doing this. I just love the conversations with people and other people being able to listen to those and hear some of those stories. It's there's a lot of inspiration. There's a lot of power in storytelling, and
Yeah.
as we do that, different people get different ideas, and it can truly be life changing for people. So I appreciate you sharing your story.
All right. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Bruce. We'll have a great day.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So as I was going through and listening to this call again with Bruce, one thing caught my attention. Did anyone else catch how he described the success of the kids that he works with on that truck? He had said, those kids have come 1,000,000 miles. And I thought that was a beautiful metaphor as we talked about, this whole discussion of biking and how he started out, just doing a couple miles and then how eventually, he's biking to Florida from Texas. So, sometimes we get stuck not really thinking that we've made much progress or we've gone very far, but it's always good to, as we're being consistent and working through stuff, to stop every once in a while and reflect, see how far we've come and where we're at and where we're going. Great work that Bruce is doing there to help those kids, gain those skills and that experience, and great thing for him to be proud about. So look him up, donate some money to help him out, and follow him along with his blog. He's got some great stuff on there, some great wisdom, some great insights. The Old Guy Bicycle Blog is what it's called. I'll link to it in the description as well as on my Instagram page. So make sure you give that a follow. And and speaking of taking a moment to kind of reflect and stop and see where we're at. It's been cool to do this podcast and get a lot of the feedback and people talking about how it's inspiring them to ride. So thank you guys. We just hit 1,000 downloads, so that was actually pretty cool. Not that it's all about the downloads, but it just means that people are listening and it's gaining traction. So share with others. Thank you again. Appreciate the support. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And whenever you're experiencing some difficult times, or you feeling like you want to be inspired by something, by some of these stories, or going through whatever it is you're going through, just jump on that bike and let's ride this out.